Okay, so first, big socks. I have here, and I only have an hour. I can talk for weeks. So I have here the Chindaika, which means cute little knitter, from Anton Biziev in the Northern Caucasus region of what is now Russia. They don't want to be Russia, but they are Russia. And Anton has worked very hard. Looks very much like an auto knitter. He's worked very hard to produce a knitter that is kind of specialized towards knitting thicker yarns. And I don't want to do a whole lot with it. You can see here, the one thing I did want to say is that it doesn't rib, and that you can knit thick yarns with other knitters. That's absolutely true. I have the luxury of having a lot of knitters, and plus I support antique and new manufacturers. I think that I will have one by everybody pretty soon here now. And so I wanted to support Anton's work. I work as a nurse. I've been fortunate to be able to keep my income during the pandemic and all of that. And so I do try to support people. I've knitted Lopi yarn on this, which is quite thick. Anton knits at this weight. And since he doesn't rib, he uses a ribbed piece that he has that's like one of Karen's all-purpose castillon bonnets, and he hangs the cuff in there and uses it as a castillon bonnet, and then just knits straight into the body. Okay, I have when I ordered from Anton, I went ahead and got yarns from the region. And so you can do that too. It makes an excellent padding to get it all the way from Moscow to Asheville, North Carolina, or wherever you are. And Anton's easy to work with. It's better for him to show his own machine. I do want to say that with this machine, one of the things that I envision using it for is to make things like little booties and stuff for the nursing home people that I have the privilege to serve. And so, you know, you can go forever and ever on acrylic, and with these thick yarns you're in good shape with the acrylic yarns. One thing I did want to say, just as a technique tip, is that if you go up to the really thick yarns and you're going to hang a hem, for the first row, and then the one that you hang it on, and then the one you join with, use a thinner yarn, because no knitter on the face of this earth is going to do 3 of those in one pass. Okay, so you need to make your hanging area nice and thin. Like Amy, I hang my yarn off of anything. This is a Griswold being put to poor use as a spare mass, but that's it. Anton's YouTube video, he's best seen himself. Back up there, you can probably see that. It's Mr. Antosh 73. And it's on YouTube. And then if you look down, there are a couple that I don't know what he's talking about, okay? But you'll see the Chindaika. It's written in the Cyrillic, like there. Okay, you'll see Chindaika, and you'll see a great big huge thing of yarn that looks kind of like this. And you can watch Anton, and then at the end of the video is his email address. And it looks a little odd, but that is it. He's fluent in English, and that's all. I'm not a shill. I've got no dog in this fight. I like Anton. I like his knitter. I like everybody. I like all knitters. Okay, we're gonna switch, and we're gonna work with the little Swedish machine. I have been in boot camp for 9 days, and I have developed a lot of techniques. And so what I thought I would do is show you what I'm doing, make a little thing, and then I'll just talk my way through it. So what I did, I have this tendency to like to make samples. Do with this. And some of these are from friends. But when I was studying some other techniques, I made little bunnies using the Skip the Bunny pattern on Ravelry. I made little bunnies, and each of their sweaters was a different technique. So this is Mr. Failed Garter Stitch, because I got it wrong, but he's so cute, okay? And this little guy, oh, right, he's got a little sweater. Okay, so this is Mr. LLB. And this one, I worked like a dog on this to prove that I could do stranded work. And so that's an Estonian pattern. So he's Mr. Fair Isle. The point of making the study bunnies is that I could get in and out of a project, learn a technique, and then decide what I thought about it. One of the things that I think is problematic if you're learning something new, if you go straight into something like, I'm going to make a sock, is I think that you have kind of upped the emotional ante on yourself as a learner. If you somehow make it through that first sock, then you have to make another one that matches. Okay. And so rather than saying, I'm going to make a sock, why not, I'm going to learn how to do this. Like I'm going to learn how to do a heel, or I'm going to learn how to do tuck stitch, or I'm going to learn how to do a hung hem, or what have you. And that way, if you do it, you succeeded. If you don't do it, it's not that big a deal. You don't have this enormous investment in your idea of what you're trying to learn or make. And even better, you don't have to match. Okay, so what I did for my Swedish boot camp was I did my Christmas wreath, and this is a knitter's wreath, and I did not knit everything here on the favorite, and I'm going to say favorite. If there's anybody that's Swedish that knows whether it's favorite or favorite, please speak up, because I'm going to say favorite until I'm corrected otherwise. All of these techniques, as you're going to see, a friend of mine, Kim, made those. I made that. You can make I-cord on the machine. You can do hung hems. This is all scrappy Christmas yarn. And then I did these little teeny socks. And so we've gone from big Anton socks to little bitty tiny socks. And each one of these is a technique study. So I'm going to show you the different techniques that I worked out with the machine. Then I'm going to just start whomping away on the machine. This was my first one. And all I did was hang a hem and get my way through to the little sock, and made everybody look at it and praise me. And I praised myself and took a million pictures. And then I went to the next one. Then the next one, I don't really know what the next one was. Maybe it was this one. I was thinking about the problems with not having a ribber, because this kind of sort of is, this machine kind of sort of is a ribber, but no, it's not, because it's not making ribbing. It's just, you're just knitting on the purl side and it's knitting down. Okay. And you'll see all of that really soon. But how about if you really wanted ribbing? Then that's no problem. You could do what Anton does and cast on with your ribbed cuff, but that seems a little over the top. What I did instead is I did a horrible selvage here. Next time I'm going to do a tiny little rolled hem. I tried a tuck selvage and it did not work at this scale. But then what I did was I just dropped the stitch that I wanted to rib. And since I'm on purl side anyway, I just latched it right back up and had my little rib cuff. And then I went on into the sock. There they are. If I lose these, they're over there. Then I sneaked the machine to work because my little vacation time was over and I still needed to do more things. I did figure out how to make I-cord, so I'll do a whole techniques thing, but I won't be able to do I-cord today, I don't think. But I figured out how to make I-cord, so I learned how to do that. Then I decided I was going to do cable, and that's a junky bad cable, okay? And I did it at work, hiding behind a locked door, holding the stitches with a paper clip, okay? And I know it's bad, but it proves that it could be done. What I think the trick to using this machine is a skill set that I don't have mastered, which is using the hand tools of flatbed knitters. And so that your transfer stitches and stuff like that, when I watch the flatbed knitters, they're just whipping along. And since your needles are out like this rather than like this, okay, everything gets real loose and gets difficult to handle when you're on these needles. And so I think using flatbed skills would really help a lot with things like ribbing. But it can be done because I did do it, and I did it under, you know, like camp conditions. We need to be able to do a contrast heel and toe. And so I did a sock monkey sock. This is a Rockford red heel, and there's a little red heel. And I did that again, I hung hem. It just looks nice on these. And there's nothing fancy about that, except they look nice. That's what we do, is we make socks, right? I did a riff on from the, I think it's the 1923 Auto Knitter book, where they do a cycler sock, and they all plagiarized endlessly from each other. So probably everybody did a cycler sock, but I went ahead and put your, you know, your little stripes, and then went on. They did a rolled cuff as well, which would not be difficult to do in this sort of setting. And then this morning, I woke up and I made this guy. I've been working and working and working on doing stranded. And also, I don't know if you can tell in there, I do have a tuck pattern that was worked into that yarn, maybe from a distance. I thought I saw it better from a distance. What I was after, and I know that's a teeny little stranded and the hearts are upside down, but I think I could do a toe up on this pretty easily. What I was after was some of the work. I've got a study of Swedish sweaters. It's a lovely, lovely book. And they were showing some work that was simple purl, like moss stitch work. And I was after that with tuck work. And I'll show you some more tuck work in just a second. I tend to go, I was a professor of history. A lot of y'all know I taught the history of science and technology. And so I tend to do a lot of research for my projects, be it sock knitters or patterns. And so I dug around in a bunch of books to get that. Now, the only other thing I will show you, and I don't think, can you zoom up on that? Is that with the same tucking abilities, you can also do this lace covering for ornaments of various sorts. Right now, obviously, those would be Christmas tree decorations. And if I remember, I'll show you how to shift that bead onto a stitch. I've got a little fake bead here. Before I get to knitting, I want to show you a few samples. I made the little socks, so I didn't want to show you endless swatches. But there's an example of the lace patterning using tuck. That's a pyramid, okay? Absolutely beautiful material. And one of the things I like about it is that
Melissa, you're frozen. Melissa. Hang on, everybody. We'll get her. There she is.
Am I good?
You're good.
Okay. This is work for, I was doing a study of quilt hose, evening quilt hose, and all this is eyelet pattern, which would be very, very easily done on this machine, and I'll show you that. That I did not do. I did that on a 96 needle and then decided I wasn't going to do it. And then I've been working like a dog, as we say here, on how to do the stranded work. And I'll only be able to show you a little bit of it. And I still have it in development, like very much so, in that I can only barely do it right now, but we will talk. Now, what I want to do is knit on the machine. But first I want to show you what you get with the machine. If you get a whole favorite, you get this box in the mail, okay? And inside is the machine, which this is the knitter, and then there's a dial, there's a tube, and there's the clamp, okay? You will get, it sounds like I'm selling them. I don't have any except mine, I don't sell. You'll get these hooks. You'll see those in use very shortly. You'll get this donut. I did a couple of videos because I'm not going to do a full tear down and put back together of the machine because I figured y'all would want to see some techniques and see the machine actually working. But this is what you use. You put it in the middle and it spaces where your needles are, and then you take it out and the needles are right where they're supposed to be, and then you put the knitter on top. And what else is in the box? You will get, hopefully nobody's torn the label off and you will know what year. Mine's from 1917. You will get a manual, which I do not have my manual. I meant to get my Swedish manual out. I don't have my Swedish manual here with me. If you have a machine and you would prefer a copy of the book in very badly translated Swedish to English, then you can write to me, same email address, because I spent 12 hours with Google Translate and put together an English version of the manual, and then I did also find one in Dutch. And so you got your choice: English, Dutch, or Swedish. What else is in the box? You'll have the manual, hopefully. This is the casting on basket, and you'll notice that it will close in circumference, okay? And this should be very, very familiar to anybody that knits with flatbeds. You throw the one strand loosely around without knitting, and then you come up and then you hang weights, and you have cast onto your machine. The weights are the cutest weights on earth. It's worth having one of these just for these little weights, okay? They're heavy. They're a pound a piece. You're not going to see me using weights nor knitting in the round today. It's two entirely different techniques to work in the round versus I'm going to flatten it on the front. If you are lucky, you will get a bobbin winder, and you will get bobbins, okay? If you're super lucky, you'll get one or more different beds, needle beds. The sizes were 72, 96, 108, and 120. I'm knitting on a 72 with 19 or 20 needles on the front. This is the 96, and I've got a 108 and a 120 as well. Probably most of the patterns in the book, let's put it this way, are for 72 and 96. I can't even remember if there are any patterns for higher. Maybe there was another manual that I haven't seen. If somebody sees a manual that has patterns for that, I would love any additional favorite manuals. I'll help you translate it. Probably you will be unlucky and you will get the same crappy needles that everybody gets with the machine, where somebody worked on it for a little while, bashed it around, broke off some of the tongues, and then sold the thing after it sat in the attic for 50 years. And so you have to source needles. I am using Grossbecker needles from Germany. They're not very good needles. I thought I had new needles. That's one of the reasons I'm not knitting in the round. I thought I had new needles and I didn't. And so I'm using the 20 that I like. You can use, I understand, Gearhart needles, the river needles. You would need 12 gauge for the 72, the 96, 18 gauge for the higher 108 and the 120, but you cannot use your little donut to put them in because the very end of the needle, it doesn't matter because it's just the butt end of the needle, but it's a little bit longer than the correct needle for this, and so you have to manually place it in. That is not as big a deal as it would seem. I'm going to show you because I need to get rid of one needle. This is your access port. It is, obviously, since I'm going to do it, this is B in the manual. Don't lose it. And you can get to a needle if you wanted to change it. And you remember I told you that I had 19 or 20, and we're going to either have 18 or 19 now, because you can get a needle out, and obviously then you can put a needle in. And that's how you would change needles. And that is also how you would put in the longer butted Gearhart needles. I didn't have the nerve to try that. I did it 2 years ago before I got this job that gave me all my knitter money. I was working on these really, really hard, and I was trying this, that, and trying this, that with the other with needles. And I really had to study up for this. I rashly said that I'll do that, and then needed to work. So I just worked with the needles I had. Something I want to tell you, because I'm not going to do it, okay, is that this is a more useful port than I first realized, because what it means is that if I wanted to do mock rib, I could push needles out of work, and that's out of work, okay, or I can bring them back. Now there are different ways to bring them back, and that one of those is on my videos that I already posted. But you see here that because it's a place, nowhere else can you push the needles in, okay? But when you're right in front of there, you got a little gap that big, and you can move your needles back and forth. And that's how you would do your mock rib. If you didn't want to do a pure rib, You know, and mock rib is a really, really good thing because if people have circulatory problems, if they're elderly, or if they might have diabetes or something like that, they don't need to be having full rib anyway, because that full tight stitch on the backside will cut into their circulation. And so mock rib is a lovely thing. So you need this. You can't operate the machine well without this in place, because as I showed in the video earlier, that little bit right there finishes the ring that's around the whole knitter that holds the needles in place. What'll happen is you'll get here and they'll tip up a little bit and jam. So you have to put it into place. As a matter of fact, I even put a paper clip on top of mine because I found that even if it pops up a little bit, I'm liable to jam. I'm not going to go through the functions, but I will. Well, I will on one and I won't on the other. This is A, I think, in the manual. And when you pull that out, you can pop the needles back out. We're not going to pop the needles. I have all the other needles in this machine. I'm just going to work on this. I pulled out the ones I wanted to work on. Here is your familiar V-cam. That is, I forget what it's S, and it allows you to freewheel, was the way it translated. What it means is that you don't knit. So let me show you what happens when you do knit. So there's low or loose, that's the L. And then there's an H, and that's for high, which is a tight stitch. Okay, so you got freewheel, loose, and high. And you don't play in between those. You don't have anything there. That's not yours to do. What you're doing is moving that lever over to free. So let me show you it knitting. When it knits, the actual yarn carrier is there, and the needles only go back and come out. There are no, I'll come back. There are no side cams. Rather wonderfully, you can do any direction you feel like all day long. As long as you don't twist your yarn, you can go back and forth. So you can get yourself on the right foot. If that's what you need, is to be on the right side or what have you. It's actually really nice. Now, let me show you freewheel. So, you know, loose is loose, tight is tight. You get that. But here, if I put it to the freewheel, watch, nothing. So I could move that way, okay? And there are patterns that have directions for when you put it into freewheel and then re-engage the needles. One other thing that will look more familiar, oops, I need to be freewheeling until I get away from needles. Oh, sorry. There was never a demonstration with one of these that didn't have it lock up. As Matthew said, that's the joy of the live presentation. I accidentally pulled some out, I'm sorry. That's what I was going to show you. Something that will look more familiar is taking a needle temporarily. Ha-ha, I got through it. That moment of public stress. Taking a needle temporarily out of work. And you know on your cylinder how you raise the needles? Like if you're going to do the heel, you do the same thing here, except instead of raise, they come out. Now watch. If all goes well and my juju is good, I'm going to come around this way. Those won't knit, but those do. Okay, so now I'm going to knit and run my mouth as I knit. So I'm going to cast on. I cast on. I've done a video called Slum Knitting with Milissa. When I teach classes, we cast on with stuff like this. I just knit a huge tube, and after a while, it looks like, you know, some sort of avant-garde ballerina outfit because it's got all this casting on. And then I knit another one. Got one here that I did for Anton's. And I'll just keep casting on to the same thing. I love casting on bonnets. I'm not going to use the basket for this because I'm not in the round, okay? But I really do prefer this. I just don't have to care that much. So if you want to come around, Jonathan, here. My son's my cameraman. And so I'm going to do the usual casting on. And so I'm going to do every other needle. I lost my lucky toothpick that I've used for years and years and years. So we're going to assume it's not bad luck. This Addy thing is cute, but it's sharper than I'm used to. I like one of those that I think is for scraping in between teeth. It's got a duller profile, and I keep poking into the yarn. It's amazing how accustomed you become to your tools, be it knitters or your hand tools. I know I have a problem. You'll know that I have a lot of knitting machines, and I have a problem when I go from one to the next, just the distance between side cams, or where's the best place to work with the ribber tappet plate, because they're different sizes, they're different profiles. And if I've been working on one machine, I get used to it, and I have to take a little while to get used to the gig of the new machine, even if it's one that I've knitted on before. Okay, I have now, yeah, that's probably, you might get it correct. After I do this, actually, sorry, I want to show you the traditional way to do this. I should do this, or I'll wake up to a mailbox full of stuff from Sweden. The traditional way to thread the favorite is thread on the floor. There's a gap here. Ann or Vincent actually kindly sent me a photograph, a gap there, so that you're not coming around stuff and putting any drag on your yarn. You go in all the way down the tube. So, okay. Then you bring the yarn up the tube. You find the end of the yarn. Then you go through a hole at the front under your handle, through the handle to the back, and draw it through. At that point, life is not yet complete, because you come up through the yarn feed and up through the eyelet there and come down. Now, I do want to say that I have been hot rodding this favorite, and let me see if I can find, yes, here's the normal yarn feed, and it goes right there, and I'll show it to you in just a minute. Okay, can you put those side by side? Can y'all see that? Alan made me one in brass, because I remember I was working so hard on doing stranded, and I wanted one that had a slot in it so I could disengage. And Evelyn's going to send me a spare arm from the Black Forest in Germany, so that I'm not willing to change the original, and I'm not willing to put a slot in original stuff, nor cut a slot there, nor put a big yarn mast up here or something like that. But a spare arm I'm willing to do. And so Evelyn's going to send me one, but I've been hot rodding for this experiment, and that's why I've got that brass yarn feeder in. Now I'll go on and cast on, and I'll go as fast as I can. Y'all don't want to watch somebody cast on. Well, you might with this. So I'm just doing the same old thing. I'm casting on every other needle. If you are really, really new, you may not know that you can cast on every other needle, and I'll show you what happens when I make one pass. And I sure do need to put my needles back into work. And I'm going to put another one there, because I don't want to start with a naked needle. None of us do. I'm going to go back into work. There we go. There's some little jigglers here that you can jiggle that ring that's on the inside, and sometimes you need to, because if that heel gets stuck of the needle, then you got trouble. Okay, now I'm going to lower, and I'm going to make one pass, and I'm going to do hand weights this whole time. So there it is, knitting. And for those of you that don't know, can you show them that? Since I did every other needle, you see there's a needle with a stitch, and then it went over the top, and there's a needle with a stitch, and then it went over the top, and so on and so forth. And so on the next pass, when I come back, and I'm going to tighten below, because again, I only have my hands, and come back. Now I've got stitches on everybody, and life is good. Okay, now I'm just going to knit for a sec. Often I find that if I have difficulty, if a stitch fails to make, it's the same old, same old. Do it manually. Except see how much looser your world is? That's where you miss your cylindrical one. I'm not a flatbed knitter. I do knit on V-beds, but I'm not great. And so a lot of these skills are new ones to me. Okay, so what I'm going to do, we're going to call that waste yarn, okay? But I'm good. And I'm going to put a ravel cord on. I do not buy ravel cord because if it says ravel cord, it costs more money than I want to spend, and it's too thick and it's too waxy, and it's just not right for me. I use crochet cotton, and I own good scissors somewhere. And what I do, okay, now, Jonathan, I want you to show them this mess. Can y'all see that yarn mast? This is a later virtual crank-in. We'll play with this yarn mast. This goes with a Gloria machine from Germany, and it does multiple yarn feed striping as well. But I'm using it because I'll use any mast at any time in order to get the yarn that I want. And so I normally look like I got, caught in a fishing net or something. I don't feel like going all the way down to the ground. I'm 57. So what I'm going to do is go in here, feed from the top, use the upper mast, come down. I don't really feel like threading that, but I'll do it because otherwise I'll run out of, it'll be bad karma rather than good karma, and I'll drop every single stitch. But I have been knitting without even threading through until I get one that I can cut a slot in. I have been knitting with it just on the other side of that loop. And then I can go in because of the thing that Alan made for me. And then here, and make it kind of long. I tend to be chintzy about the stupidest things, and to be chintzy about crochet cotton is really a little lame, because what happens is my ravel cord will start working its way out. This way I can tighten, and it's just one row. Okay, and now I've got one row of ravel cord. Now I'm gonna not be chintzy and cut myself a length, and I go on and tie it a bit in the front because I want my ends to my edges, my selvages, because I'm making cloth, and these are selvages since it's flat. I want my selvages to be as tidy as possible. These are Christmas ornaments, okay? So I get to sew it up later, and what goes in the sock stays in the sock, and it gets hidden, and there's all kinds of stuff hidden down in there. But still, good practice is good practice. Now what I want to do is actually cast on, and with working yarn. I'm in good shape. I've got several minutes. And I'll knit as far as I can, and I'll show as much as I can in that time. I'm doing the upper feed again just because it's faster. I'm going to not hang a hem, okay, because although I would, well, maybe I will hang a hem, do it fast. Let me just hang a little bit of hem. Otherwise, I can't show you the ravel cord. So I just fed to the front. You can kind of see. I'm sorry it's on that side. And I'm now in with working yarn. And I've got working yarn. I find often if I hang on this end and if the stitch doesn't make, it's because I am putting too much pressure on it, too much weight rather than too little. I don't know why. I know that a friend of mine had the same finding with the favorite, that lightweights worked better for her as well than heavyweights. And, you know, I'm flat knitting, so that's different anyway. And I have done it. Maybe it's my needles, because I've worked with this very machine and in the round with those weights and didn't have any problems. But anyway, my point is that I find that if stuff doesn't make, or if it gets hard, lots of times, and this is true with all kinds of knitters, it's because there's too much weight. It's pulling the mechanism, it's straining the mechanism, and the yarn is so heavily on the needle that it can't really operate properly. So take a breath, It's really only a heel, and lighten up and see if you can go on and ease through that tight section, okay? Now what I want to do is I'm going to keep that out of my way, and I'll hang this real fast. And I'll just hang, okay, Jonathan? I'll just hang in there. So I'm going to hang this real fast because otherwise the ravel cord won't mean anything. What a ravel cord does is it allows you to cleanly separate from your waste cast on yarn and your working yarn, but you do have to have a viable starting selvage, your cuff, your edge. I did not find that I liked the tucked edge very much. I don't like it anyway, and I particularly didn't like it on this machine, probably because of the very small scale that I'm working on. The large loose tucks looked like sleazy cloth. You know, sleazy originally meant loose cloth, and it made sleazy cloth, and I don't like to make sleazy cloth, and I don't think that steaming is an adequate solution for the tucked edge, because what happens when you wash that sock? Well, it, you know, it's tucked again. I mean, it's all tucked and loose again. So I'm just hanging this so that I have a viable top edge. This is now my selvage at the top, and that allows my ravel cord to come off whenever that happens. It'll be the last ta-da of the show, and I will have a clean edge. And I know that a lot of these are not specific techniques to the favorite, but I mean, I can't help that. It's a knitter, and I figured it wouldn't hurt some folks to see how to do something at all, and other folks to see how I do it versus how they do it, because we all do learn from each other. I'm predominantly self-taught. I've been to one class, and I read a lot, and that reminds me of something. Before I go any farther, let me get this across. So now I've got 2 stitches that have to make, so I'm coming to the back. See how I don't want to be here, okay? I need to be back, right? And now I need to measure this. Come on, knitter. There. The favorite trick. Okay. One thing I want to show is that this is not the only knitter made this way, nor is it the first made this way. This is the Twombly. The Twombly was made in either 1863 or 1868. I can't remember, and I don't have 5 hands, and so I can't look it up again, but I rely on Dr. Candy's work here. I am his first time repeat retail customer because I have worn 1 book and the CDs out, but the Twombly worked the same way. Twombly needles are actively being looked for by me and other people that have these machines, but it's the same thing, and you would clamp it to your windowsill, I think is what they suggested, and knock yourself out some socks, okay? What was I going to say? Okay. Oh, we've had the privilege, actually, as in my incarnation as Bobbin Boy, we actually have worked with a descendant of the original Twombly. She didn't know anything at all about it, and it was quite pleasing for her to look up, you know, her ancestor. He was in Vermont, as was she. Maybe all Twomblys are in Vermont, but it was kind of cool to talk with somebody that was descended from him. Okay, so I cavalierly waded through a couple of stitches that didn't make because you didn't see them, and now I want to show just some techniques, okay? Remember how you can go out of work. Cool, let's go out of work and let's do a tucking pattern. A tucking pattern, if you remember, produces, if you like, go for it, and this was with very, very lightweight thread, okay, very, all right, but if you go for it, you can make some fantastic cloth, or you can at least not too, I think it shows better at a distance. You see there where it's got the kind of ribby, nubbly look, that was tucking. That's all I'm going to do here. But here's tucking. So I'm going to go every 4th needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3. Sound like Matthew. Now hang that. Now up, up, down. Across we go. Okay. Now I'm going to push those in. and I want to do on either side of it. So 1, 2, 3, that one and that one is on either side of the one. 1, 2, 3, that one and that one. 3. Okay, and I'm going to do that. I think. Hang on, let me back up. What happens is when you tighten that cloth, you pull your needles back by, let me show you what I mean. Come up close, Jonathan. It happens all the time. I'm hanging here, and then stuff moves in, and it moves the needles. It shifts the needles, and so and I didn't do what I should have done. I needed to hold the cloth in position. The problem is, again, I don't have, and I'm not putting any kind of weights on this. So I always said I could have ruled the world if I'd had one extra hand. That one didn't make, but we don't care because we will make it. Okay. Now I'm gonna push them all in. Tighten. And I'm back to plain stockinette. Okay. I'm gonna do a couple rows just to get steadied out. So that's how you would do tuck stitch patterns, and they're lovely. Doing eyelet or picot is the same old, except that you would remember that the flatbed knitters came up with better stuff for this orientation, and you would move one stitch. So let's see if I can do it. I go through the stitch. No, I can't do it. Y'all know how to do it. And then I would move it on to the other. I do it the same old way, and I do this horrible, horrible circular knitter way of doing it, where I take it off here and then move it over to the other needle. But that's eyelet. I mean, it's just where you slip over to one. Okay. Stranded to do Fair Isle, I don't have this entirely worked out, but I can do a little row of upside down hearts, and I also think that I could do a toe up sock, because I'm going to do a heel in just a minute. But what you would do is you would bring those needles out. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and you would see if I can get it straight in my head. Knit over. Okay, then you'd bring all the others out. And it has that sound effect. Okay, you would make sure that it wasn't going to mess you up. Okay, 1, 2, 3 in, 1, 2, 3 in, 1, 2, 3 in, 1, 2, 3 in. Something like, and we'll do it in, God, I don't know, white. So I'm going to cut, and this is what I haven't worked out, is how do you keep it from twisting? It's the question always with the stranded work, is since I'm going around and I've come up from the bottom and every little gig that I could think of, and it still ended up with twisting. I worked on it so hard that I think I've kind of fried myself mentally. I have like PTSD from doing this. For 7 hours it took to produce 1 3-inch square of really, really bad stranding. And so I'm just going to let it perk. But I will show you what little bit I've gotten to with it, because stranded is always interesting. You know, the Scandinavians did a lot of stranded work, and there is a tiny little bit of an instruction in the manual for doing what they call color work. And so, I mean, it's just endless, the Scandinavian patterns that got carried over to Scotland on the fishing routes and the trade routes, which is why I call it stranded and not Fair Isle. And so they did this, and I can't imagine that they wouldn't have figured out stranding techniques. Now, Jonathan, I want them to see that. Do you see there were just the ones that were knitted in white? Yes, you do. There, 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 and there. Well, those will show up as the little heart patterns. And since I'm knitting with a favorite, I can come around if I feel like it. I really do like that, to be able to go forwards or backwards anytime you want to, and knit it into place. Now I want to, wait a minute, yeah, there. I want to turn a little bit of heel. We're not going to finish, but I'm going to turn a little bit of heel and then I'm going to come off the machine and we'll take a look, okay? So I'm going in thread somewhat legally. And I just double knit my thing so we're not going to worry about it. Put your needles back into work. Okay, pick up those that you dropped because it was over on the edge where you lost them. Now let's turn a heel. I'm going to turn it on the side towards Jonathan, which is the side closest to you once I get this daggone stitch on, okay? I've been turning them over here and working out my intervals there, but it doesn't really matter, hopefully, or maybe the left-right thing will come into play. Actually, I'm going to do it here. I'm worried that I won't have muscle memory. I've studied too much on this, and so it's all kind of new. So I'm going to do 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm going to pull the others out. And I also pulled the edge one out because I want a little selvage one out there, okay? And then I'm going to come. Now watch when it comes back. Hang on a minute, Jonathan. Okay. Now I'm going to bring one out. And I'm going to return. And watch on the inside. Get right there. There they go. And I'm just putting my thumb in there as weight. I'm going to bring one out. And ta-da. Again, what happens is you tighten on that thread. Here we go. And out. And you see how I'm even just kind of letting go? Again, this is the weight thing. It's kind of mysterious. You see how I kind of dropped stitches because I did that? We're going to put it inside the tube. I'm going to bring one out. Bring one out. And I've been going down to 2, and that's what I'm 2, is 2. So now I'm going to do the increase. I am a wrapped heel girl. I like how a wrapped heel looks, okay? I like that tidy little line. I think it structurally has a whole lot of integrity rather than just being a simple joining. And so I'm gonna wrap. Also, for the record, stand right there. Since we've had so many proponents of heel forks, I want to say that you will never see me use a heel fork. I am a V-hook person, and I use a Steber weight. And you can do this for yourself. Just drill and put a hook in the side so that it gets out of the way and you don't have clangy-bangy down inside your cylinder. I spent about a year intentionally not using any weights because I wanted my hands to be good, but now I do V-hooks. So I'm going to do some of the increase. And so I put the needle in and I do the wrap. It'll come around on the other side, Jonathan. And I get way over there so I can get it. And then I put the needle in and I do a wrap. That's my loose. Ignore drop stitch. Put the needle in and I do a wrap. Oh, this is the tension, like what we're used to here. Right here, Jonathan. Like what we're used to here or here, turn here, or here, okay? But in your thread, when you come up from the bottom, you thread it through that, and then you can tighten with that spring. I just can't get it. It's just too tight for me, and I had to learn enough to show you all this, and so I let it be. But I got teeny little miserable stitches that were just about going to break the yarn, and so I just did it in this kind of guerrilla knitting way that I do anyway, and came up with, you know, the methods. Plus, I like using my hands. I think I like the skill set that I have from doing a lot of work with the weighting with my hands and such, rather than with tools such as heel forks. Okay, and the last increase. All needles in work. And I would proceed with the foot or the shovel, as they called it in the Hutterite communities, because it's shovel shaped. Now, I'm going to just bring this off because I see, oh no, I'm not. I'm going to show you one thing. This is just a gift from me to you. If I were going to put this bead or like these patterns that Kim did on these, here's how you do it, okay? Wherever, you often do a tuck stitch to bring the little spider web together so you've got a nice design, and we're going to pretend that that's a bead, okay? What you do is you, with whatever it is that you use, I'm going to use this flatbed transfer tool that I failed at miserably earlier. You come off, and you can use a tiny little crochet hook. You do this regardless of what knitter you're using. Get off the stitch, okay, and then put this. You would, okay. Normally, let me hold that. I forgot one thing. You put it on the tool. Bead is it. Then you get the stitch off, okay? You slip the bead onto the stitch, the neck of the stitch, and then you put the stitch back on. And so what you do is you knit it. Here, show them. It's knitted on that rising part of the stitch. It's not knitted on the needle, and just make sure you stay out of your own way. Okay, that's it. That's my gift. So let me bring this off. Same old, same old. We're used to this. We know how to get off a machine, right? There's the favorite. There's my drop stitch that I've got my thumb on. There's my upside down hearts, and so I need to do a toe up, which, as you can see, would be very easy. Just cast on and start with the toe, okay? And now I'm going to do my ravel cord bit. Pull it out. Separate, ignore the drop stitch. That's what Netflix is for, is to pick up drop stitches, okay? And it separates, and I've got a clean non-live edge. And that's it. We've got 3 minutes if there are questions.